Encountering clerkships is the #1 most important thing for matching in your dream residency. Why? The best predictor of step 2 is your scores on IM, surgery, and OB shelves. Plus, your evaluations and letters of recommendation will form the foundation of your residency application. But the hardest working students are rarely the ones who honor. I've watched students surf the internet while I killed myself pre-rounding. They honor. Why? They focus on tasks residents actually care about, not busy work. In this tutoring session, I'll reveal exactly what residents grade you on and how to triple your study time while being more helpful to your team. You'll cut out what doesn't matter and free up hours for sleep and studying.
I did notice one thing when I was taking this psych shelf, I was zoning out. Halfway through the exam, I started zoning out. I did not know what I was reading. Maybe I was tired, maybe just like I was nervous. I don't know. I think the first half went really well. Second half, I was just like, I didn't like, because I read the question template super slow at the pace that you were talking about, like in the lectures, right? And I just noticed that like I didn't remember what I was reading, and I kept to like reading back, and I almost ran out of time.
So inattention can happen for a variety of reasons. I'd say probably the two most common are sleep, like you didn't sleep enough, or burnout.
Maybe, yeah,
Or
that's
anxiety.
possible. Yeah,
You've run anxiety, those two things.
I think those are mainly, yeah, probably, yeah.
I think that you've run into the correlation is causation problem. What do I mean? Mean that I think that you've like you did everything possible to try to get the absolute best like clinical grades for psych and neurology, and you did get really good clinical grades on neurology. And I think that you now have conflated the effort that you had to put in to get that as the reason that you got really good clinical grades.
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
So, in other words, is it possible that you could have worked half as much and still gotten probably 90% as good of clinical grades?
Maybe, yeah.
I can tell you yes. I mean, because like in general, it's not. Um, I in general, I think that you don't have to do nearly as much. It's kind of like saying, right? Like there's people that are like they did the Q bank 3 times and they read first aid 15 times or whatever. Like they think that was the reason. Like they could have gotten the same if not better results with like effort, as long as the effort was the right kind of effort. Is it? Are you open to the possibility that the same thing is true of like your clinical grades?
I agree. I think I actually started realizing that recently. Since I started P's, I was like, yeah, actually, because I did not like pre-chart as much as I did for psych and neurology, and I was like, I'm still fine.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
it's still going fine.
How to get good clinical evaluations without killing yourself or force GQ. Okay. So, the basic idea is that I want to break this into 2 parts. There's like residents / interns, and then there's like attendings. Okay, so like, how are they going to write your evaluation? So for the most part, your evaluations are based on how much they like you.
I know it's a very subjective thing.
I hate to say it, but this is just true. Like if they like you, they're going to write good evaluation. So let's go through. So for residents and interns, let's put ourselves in their position, right? I'd say the biggest mistake that med students make is that they think that all effort is rewarded equally in terms of evaluations and grades and shelf scores and things like that, right? That like an hour of slaving away at like one task is like the same as like any hour. So you might as well just like work hard. You're doing. I'd say that's like the first mistake that they make. The second mistake that they make is that they think that they make it all about them, and they don't think about like they don't put reverse engineer the person that like they're that's actually writing the evaluation. And this is also interviews, by the way. I'd say the most common mistake that I see in interviews is that people only talk about themselves and they don't think about what problem that program directors and the interviewers are trying to solve. Because if you do that, they will know, like, and trust you. And just like Michael Hull says, like, they're not going to write anything bad about you. So like,
Yeah.
right. So for residents and interns, they just want to go home. It really is that simple. And so what does that mean? So if we like reverse, so how to solve their problem, you want to do work that takes things off their plates.
Mhm.
So like a bad
Mhm.
example of this would be like writing crazy long / detailed progress notes. Even what you said before of like pre-charting or like, like pre-rounding, probably
Mhm.
not that useful, honestly. Maybe it's
Yeah.
okay. Useful if you know the patient, like they'll be kind of impressed that you like you should
Mhm.
know for patient care and for other reasons. But for the most part, like that doesn't really help them that much because they're gonna have to pre-round, they're gonna have to write their own progress notes, they're gonna have
Okay.
to write their own
Mhm.
like, so those med students that are like over eager and they'll write like crazy progress notes, generally they're not like, yeah, it's like you'll recognize like, oh yeah, that's good, but like it doesn't really
Mhm.
help the primary
Yeah.
problem of I just want to go
Mhm.
home, right?
Yeah.
So a good example, can you think of good examples of things that you can do that will basically make it so that you're taking things off their plate and making it easier
Um,
for them?
I think one thing I learned from my piece in patient rotation was I was writing notes for them, but I follow their pattern. So I would check their old notes and I'll like follow like whatever pattern they were doing, the format they were using. And also I was like, oh, do you need help with the hospital course? And they're like, yes, we'll love that. Cause like none of them wanted to do it. I was like, okay, I'll do it because I've done it before. So
Yes.
just I guess just like find things that they don't want to do and then you can just do it for them if you're okay.
Yes. So discharge summaries. That's like the main thing.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
it is such a painful thing to do. Like you've just spent all this time, especially for those really long patients. If
Mhm.
you have like a discharge summary that's like already written,
Mhm.
honestly, your evaluation will already be written in that moment. And they will already decide, I love this girl. Like I will write whatever she needs. I will like seriously.
Yeah.
Like I can still remember I worked with Tufts medical students and Harvard medical.
Mhm.
And the Tufts students, there were a couple Tufts students that were just amazing. And the reason why we loved them was because they just sat there and they just like, I don't no idea what they were doing for most of the time, but they would just like write discharge summaries. And like they got, I guarantee the best evaluations of anyone. And they probably were like 50% of the time, they were probably like, I don't know, surfing the internet or like,
Yeah, we're like doing
like
yeah.
I don't care because like they were sitting at the computer and whenever we needed to discharge a patient, like they had it ready and we were like, oh man, that was amazing.
Wow.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's a really big one.
Mhm.
Another thing that's like a good practice is when you are like listen on rounds
Mhm.
or things that are going on their checklists. Right. So like, follow up labs, checking for consult recs, etc. Like those kinds of things where it's like they require there's something they need to check, um,
Mhm.
and they don't know when it's going to happen, and so it's like so if you just sit at the computer, uh, so one really fun thing to do is you just sit at the computer. So get the list
Mhm.
and sit at the computer and check every say 15 minutes for all of the computer-based tasks. So I guess that's the thing. Listen that are going on the checklist for the computer-based, right? Things that you could check on your computer easily. And so
Mhm.
every 15 minutes, you just cycle through all that entire list.
Mhm.
And so like check the troponin, check the creatinine, check the read,
Mhm.
check the whatever. Like just go through every 15 minutes. And then when
Mhm.
something comes up, you're like, oh, great. And you say, hey, Steve, or hey, Cynthia, or whatever, like
Mhm.
resident is, hey, that thing just came back. Here, turn your computer to them, show it to them so they can see it and check it
Mhm.
off there.
Mhm.
And then for the other 14 minutes, when you're not checking these things, just do your Anki cards on the computer, right?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So you want to use Anki Web. Because if you're on your computer and you do Anki, they're going to think that you're doing work, especially if you actually showed them work that you're doing. But like those tough students, I mean, I have no idea. Honestly, thinking back now, like no way that it turned out. Short summaries, like they must have been doing other stuff. But honestly, I don't care. Because like our discharge summaries were written for the entire month. Like that was fantastic. So like it didn't really matter. Right.
All right.
And so if that's all you do, you say like, hey, I have found that actually writing discharge summaries is really beneficial for me at this stage of my training. Would it be okay if I wrote this discharge summaries, like at a minimum for the patients that you're following, but if you're really bold and you're really good at it, you can actually you might try and write like 1 or 2 extra for like some of these patients. But like,
Yeah, I
minimum just,
actually asked him. So I actually asked him about inpatient last week. I was like, "Oh, I can help with the discharge summaries if you want." And then they're like, "Oh no, we'll work on the discharge summaries," but they asked me to do progress notes in the hospital course. So like, I don't know, like, what if they don't want me to do the discharge summaries?
that's
Like,
what
what am I gonna do?
what can I do to take things off of your plate?
I see. Okay,
Right.
I see.
And so they don't need to, I mean, because it's still pretty early in the year. So they may want to just do it on their own. But like I can
Yeah.
come and here comes like the last thing that most people want to do is just start summaries. So yeah. Like
I mean,
this
yeah.
you
Yeah,
will
they're
go
also like, you know, they're also like 2 new interns, so that's probably why. Because like they're like, yeah, like we're also new, so we don't want like
like really excited and like, because
yeah, that's probably why.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that give it a couple months and
Okay.
this is trust me, this is a winning strategy. Trust me.
Okay.
Like I believe me. So okay. So that's what I would do. For honestly, it's like pretty easy. Like if just think of what are the things, because a lot of things that are a lot of things that interns have to do actually have not like they're vastly underutilizing their training. They're already overworked as is. And so it doesn't take much. Like if you've ever been like had like a really, 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 really awful day or been really, really, really overwhelmed and like someone did like something really small for you, even though it's like really small, it's like it actually made a really big difference to you. That's what it's like to be an intern, right? It doesn't actually take that much to like make their day. It's like bring them an extra plate of food. Of like, whatever. Noon conference, like do the whatever. Like, and so, but like discharge summaries are really good. Like just try to find ways in which you can help and frame it as because it is genuinely true. I actually think of all the notes that you write, the discharge summary is by far the most useful. It's the most difficult, but it's the most useful in terms of your training.
All right.
Have to zoom out and like kind of understand like the big picture. You can't get really sucked into the details of like this happened and then this happened and this like you have to be able to follow the broad course. It's kind of like a vignette actually, for a step 2 or a shop.
Yeah.
It really is like a big picture thing. And so you just want to frame it as to them as like, I actually find this really helpful for my training and for my own learning. Would it, like I've been told that this also can be a way that I can help with the team. So it can free up your time so that you can do sort of things that are more at your level of training. I don't think anyone would ever say no to that.
Okay. Yeah. Let's find out the next.
All the other stuff that you think that you need to do, you don't have to do.
Okay. See.
Right? Like just ask yourself, though, like do them, learn them at, to a reasonable level, but you want to follow the Parkinson rule, which is time will shrink or expand to fit the time allotted. So the time required to complete a task is, so in other words, if I give myself an hour to do a task, it'll take an hour. If I give myself 10 minutes, I'll figure out a way to do it in 10 minutes.
All right.
So like your pre-rounding or whatever it is, like think of the things that are taking the most time. Ask yourself, how could I do this in like 30% of the time? And you'll figure out a way to do it. Like you'll, what are the things that you can cut? And so, cool. Make sense?
Yep.
So for attendings, there's actually like, I'm sure they want to go home too, but like they're not feeling it as acutely. And so for attendings, for the most part, it's you need to present without your notes. To get good at answering family questions. for the most part, that's how. I mean, if you get to know them, that also helps. But your sort of FaceTime with them is going to be much less, so you'll have less of a chance to sort of make an impression.
Right.
Oftentimes, the kinds of the impressions that you're going to make are like, can you present? Can you have a good presentation, and can you answer questions? Like, can you answer their pimping questions intelligently? Doesn't mean you get
Mm.
the right answer, but at least like, can you do a reasonable job of answering it? To be honest, what you're learning in the course and what you're like, the way that you're studying you should already have noticed a difference.
So
Whereas,
your lectures help so much. Like things actually make sense now.
okay,
Reno was the worst before, but now I'm like, oh, it actually makes sense. I know what's going on. I know why this happens to magic.
and so it's kind of the same. So I will tell you that the other than people talking about like their scores improving and questions make more sense, I'd say the most common non-score feedback that we get about the program is that they feel so much more comfortable getting pimped, and they get really good feedback on like their
Okay.
clinical reads.
Mhm.
And it's really obvious when like they're on a rotation with another medical student, because like the other medical student they're just like spouting facts and they have no idea.
Mhm.
So that honestly, as long as you like, the more that you study, the better that this is going to get.
Mhm.
Right. So pimping questions will improve even more the more you study. So like, again, if you can reduce the amount of time that you're spending on this stuff, it will help you even more to impress attendings, because you're going to have more time to study. You work really hard. Right. And so the problem is I think you're working really hard without getting a lot of leverage from it. Right.
Mhm.
Because you're doing like 100 things, whereas only maybe 10 of them are making a difference.
Mhm.
If you just focus on those 10 or 20 things that are going to make the biggest difference, you would free up like 60% of your time to do other things.
Mhm.
And part of that is going to be like sleep, which is also going to be a virtuous cycle, because now you're going to be able to study better and you're going to feel more. You better in your self exams because you're not getting so distracted. Right. In addition to that, because it sounds like you were maybe tired on your test. Is that possible?
I think I was. Both my neurology and psych shelves, like halfway through the exams, I was just like, I was zoning out. I was like, I don't know I'm reading. Like, this is it. Like, I can't do this.
That
Like,
sounds
my
like,
reasoning was off. My
were
logic
you,
was off.
you really anxious?
I don't think I was anxious. I think I was just like, at that point, I was just like, I just want to get through this exam. That's it.
Yeah, either fatigue or burnout, but sleeping will help, honestly.
Okay.
Like, so part of this is going to improve just because you're going to get more sleep, right? Again, you could probably reduce the amount that you're doing in the hospital by about 70%, and you could probably have 4 times as much time, right?
Mhm.
Like, to stuff, because you're studying with very little time right now, and so if you just reduce the amount of time that you're doing on this, like,
Mhm.
you could see a massive increase in the amount of time
Mhm.
and think do. The first thing. The second thing is, so that's like the pimping will get better. The other one is like presenting without notes.
Mhm.
So are you presenting without notes right now?
I try. Depends on the patient. When I was on PTNT, I noticed that like during the second week I was on PTNT, I could like present most of the patients without notes.
Good.
But
When you,
on inpatient was more complicated.
what's your feedback that you've been getting about your presentations from attendings?
I think one thing they're saying is that sometimes, um, on inpatient, they're saying that my summary statement could be more complete. That I was not like including everything that I should have said.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Too much.
PT, I think on PZNT, I think it was fine at the end. Like toward the second week, I was getting a lot better. I was like able to just like say everything, like tell them all the physical exam findings, and my structure was getting a lot better. So I think the main thing was the summary statement.
Do you ever get feedback on like what's your feedback on like you included too much or too little information in the presentation itself? Like, oh, I wish that you had said that, or oh, that was like too much information. You didn't need to talk about that. Do you ever
I
struggle with that?
think I do. Sometimes they're like, "Oh, like, did you get information from did you get history about that part, about that information?" Or like, "Oh, did you ask about this? Did you ask about that?" Like, sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, I actually forgot to ask about it." Yeah.
I see. Um, do you know the solution to that?
I don't.
So from a present and even in asking the question, this can make a big difference. Um, I'd say this the single best advice I know of to help with
Mhm.
presentations is to begin with the end in mind.
Mm.
Begin with the assessment and plan when you plan. Does that make sense?
Oh, so, like, you mean, like, say, like, the summary statement first? Like, this
Oh,
assessment
sorry.
summary?
Oh no.
Like, what do you mean?
So what I mean is, so for example, let's say that I'm going to argue that this patient that came in with shortness of breath is having a heart failure exacerbation.
Uh-huh.
I think that he has like he's cold, but sorry, he's wet but warm, meaning like he's got good perfusion, but he's got
Mm.
volume overload.
Mm.
I'm going to argue that he should be given Lasix, but he doesn't need to go put in the ICU or something like that.
Mhm.
Okay, great. So I also need to explain why it's not any of these alternative things. So I need to explain why it's not PD. I need to explain why it's not like
Mhm.
deconditioning, to explain like all of this stuff. And so I need, I also need to define the severity of the condition. So like, what's
Mhm.
his exercise tolerance? What's his normal exercise tolerance now? Is he
Mhm.
having problems with? But like, like, all of these things become obvious that I should ask because I know what I'm going to argue.
Mm.
Because I think the most common mistake that I see med students or that I see med students make when they're doing their presentations is that they don't know when to say the thing or not. So like, should
Right.
I talk about
Mhm.
this history? Should I not talk
Yeah.
about B? Is this relevant? Is it not relevant? Should I talk about this? Right. And the way to solve that problem is figure out like what are you trying to argue for? And what are you trying to argue
Mm.
against?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Right. So if I'm arguing for heart failure and that it's like kind of mild to moderate heart failure, but not like severe, and I am arguing that like it's not COPD,
Mhm.
it's not my, it's not whatever else would have been on my differential,
Mhm.
then I'm gonna have to say like, okay, well, they did an EKG in the, like so if I'm arguing against an MI, it's like, okay, well, they did an EKG, it was normal, and they did a troponin in the EKG in the ED.
Mhm.
I'm gonna argue that it's not asthma, then I'm gonna have to talk about like there's no wheezes, there's no like,
Right.
yeah, no history of asthma, he doesn't have any like, uh, right,
Uh-huh.
it's just my presentation kind of writes itself as long as I know what my assessment and plan is.
Mm. I
Does that
see.
make And
Yeah.
then it also solves the problem of what question should I ask the patient in the first,
Yeah, that's the thing, yeah.
right? Because it's like, because then because as you're writing the presentation, you're gonna realize, oh shoot, I should have asked that. Or like, oh, I'm gonna look up the ED course and let's see, did
Mhm.
they report that they, have asthma? Or are they taking an albuterol inhaler or something like
Mhm.
that? Does that make
Mhm.
sense? It helps you kind of cover
Yeah.
your base.
So I guess my question is like, how do you, so like, for example, like before I go to ask the patient these questions, like I should have like a picture of like what I'm gonna ask, right? It's more like, oh, I'm like I already have a differential at that point, or
In an ideal world, yes. So have you ever
okay,
used the hospitalist handbook?
I have not.
You know what it is?
I heard of it.
So it's put out by UCSF. So
Uh-huh.
you've heard of like I don't know what color it is now, but pocket medicine.
Uh-huh.
So it's like the supposedly like the
Yeah.
go-to for people for internal medicine. It's
Yeah.
funny because it's written at MGH, but I actually never saw anyone at MGH use it ever in any department, certainly not
Mhm.
general. And so what they use is they use what they call the white book, which is like it's
Mhm.
all the questions that you would need to ask, all of the labs that you would need to order, all of the managements, like
Mhm.
we're saying and everything. It's in like one very, very, very thin book.
Mhm.
and you just carry it around in your pocket. And it tells you kind of everything for internal medicine.
Oh wow.
Wouldn't that be great to have?
Yeah. Why not?
So the unfortunate thing is that MGH does not share it publicly. They're kind of like weird and stingy like that. But UCSF has basically their own version of it, and they do share it online.
Oh, nice.
I'll show you, for example, like I think they're hard. Good. So let's go to heart failure. So you see how it's like it gives you the definition. It's a clinical diagnosis, the syndrome, blah blah blah, right? And so classification tells you the classifications. It tells you the etiology, right? And then it tells you like what are the things you need to be looking at. So it's like, okay, great. So you need to look at an echo. And so even before you go into the room, you can be like, okay, let me check their last echo, right? And then you can also go through, right? You know, these are the mechanisms. Great, blah blah blah. Half is often associated. Okay, great. This is how you evaluate. So this is great. So you see, it's like these are all the things that you would need to do. Have you ever been like, you've ever gone to the patient, you know, done a presentation, and they're like, oh yeah, what was the finding? Oh God, of course. That's like the worst. So in an ideal world, you're on internal medicine and you can use the hospital's handbook because like that will like if it's in the book, it's like will almost never ever happen again for the things that are in the book. So there's one, they've got one for inpatient medicine, they've got one for outpatient medicine. So the nice thing is that like you can even kind of use it like it's obviously doesn't work as well for ped or family medicine or definitely doesn't work for B. But like there's still something like sometimes you'll still find overlap between them, and so it's still not a bad idea to the chapters. But for something like internal medicine, it's incredible. Like if you want to do well in your internal medicine inpatient rotation, you've got the inpatient and outpatient versions of this, and it's really, 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 really good.
I'm just gonna follow this.
So just follow this.
Like,
So outpatient rotations is if it was in the outpatient book, I would like write down all the questions on my little like piece of paper that I would use to take note, and I would just like have that available. Or I mean, you can also just it's now online, so it's a lot easier. So you can just print it out and just like literally just go and like kind of like
just fill it out.
The style. I'd be like, hey, you can put up your own notation, but like X it out if it's not true, or like if it was, or it's just so easy. So in an ideal world, you'd have that. If not, then the backup plan would be to begin with the assessment and plan of like, okay, like what do I think of the differential? And then just kind of go through the differential of like, and you can just kind of talk your thoughts out loud. Okay, so you got shortness of breath. It's been happening for the last 3 months, and you're having an increase. So one thing I'm thinking about is heart. So I'm going to ask you some questions about heart failure, and then you go through. But I don't want to miss anything. So let's also, I'm also going to consider maybe there's like asthma or like, COPD or, emphysema or something like that. I'm going to ask you some questions about this. And so you're just kind of going through your differential as you talk to the patient. That's the alternative. Obviously it's not as good. This is kind of something that's like kind of medicine. Like that's just what you do. Cool.
Yep.
Makes sense so far.
Very helpful. Yep.
Okay. So I would say in general for like, if it's taking too much time, you're probably not doing these things exclusively. You can see how these things, they don't actually require that much time. They just require intent. I would say that this is like the 20% that makes like up 80% of your grade. Yeah, there's some things on the front probably matter somewhat. But so if you do this, can you see how you could probably do at least 50% like less stuff, and therefore and then that time is like time that you can use for yourself, time that you can use for sleep, time you can use for studying. And then how doing all of those other things like sleep, yourself, and studying, how that's also going to help with like, it becomes a virtuous cycle, because now getting good at this actually is getting in sleep. Right? Like that will definitely. And then it becomes like a virtuous cycle, and then it's a lot easier. Like then you'll do better in your self exam because you can do better rested.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree. This entire like these rotations, I'll be thinking about it. I was like, I feel like my effort is not put in the right place, but I don't know how to fix it. And the only way I can do it is just power through.
You know,
Yeah.
this is how you.
In my next video, I'll expose the NBME data they don't want you to see, including why 1 in 4 students scored 20 or more points different than predicted. You'll discover why using step 1 strategies on step 2 is killing your performance, and the shocking truth about why 50% of missed questions have nothing to do with knowledge gaps. Click here to watch 10 step 2 score killers you're probably overlooking and find out what's really standing between you and your dream score.